Hi guys, and welcome back to another episode in our Rise of the Moors series, and this time to the start of Season 2, where we begin our campaign in the Vanarama National League. So it's been a busy summer since the final day of last season. Firstly, because England won the European Championships. They played fantastically throughout and Raheem Sterling absolutely bossed it. I hope that's an omen for the coming summer for England's success there. Following the final, Roy Hodgson retired, and actually Slaven Bilic is now the new England manager, which is a very interesting appointment in my opinion. And it's been a busy summer for us also. Firstly, I've overhauled the backroom staff. We've got more or less a completely new coaching team. As you can see, our abilities at coaching is now the best in the league for everything apart from goalkeeping. And on top of that, I brought in a couple of new scouts, and that has really bolstered our recruitment abilities, our player judgment, and has really expanded our known players as well. And because we've expanded our player knowledge, we've had a relatively successful period over the summer in the transfer market. So again, we've been very busy over the summer in regards to player movement. We've let 10 players leave on a free transfer, and they included Connor Franklin, Theo Street, and as you can see there, our goalkeeper Luke Simpson. Interestingly, Theo Street's been snapped up by White Hawk, and they were promoted from the Vanarama National South League into the same division as us for this year, so we'll meet him again this season. As I've mentioned previously, Luke Simpson, our goalkeeper, would not negotiate a new contract with us, so he left at the end of his initial contract. But we've brought in 12 additional players, 3 of which are on a loan, and we've also extended the loan deals of Jack Haddon and Kwanzaa for an additional season-long deal. Let's have a look at the players that we've brought in now, and the first name you may be able to see there is a chap called Luke Simpson, and no, he's not the namesake. He is exactly the same player that left us. I've had this happen in previous iterations of Football Manager before, where a player would not negotiate a contract because he believes our team are not good enough to match his abilities. And in the following day, as soon as he's been released, he's up for negotiating. He had a lot of teams sniffing around him though, and we've had to pay him over the odds to retain him this year. But there's no real alternative for us. I looked at goalkeepers available on the loan market and other goalkeepers coming to the end of their contract, and realistically there was no one as good as Luke Simpson in my opinion. So we had to make a deal happen, and thankfully he signed on for another couple of seasons. So let's have a look at the players that we brought in on loan first. We've secured Jack Haddon and Keenan Kwanzaa for another year, on top of which we've brought in 3 additional loanees, the first being Connor O'Grady. He's from the Sheffield Wednesday under-21 team, and he's a centre-back. He's got decent physical stats, and a few of his key technical areas are pretty good as well. He's got a bit of potential about him, and I'm hoping playing him as a limited defender, he'll improve over the year. We've also brought in Nico Hamalainen from QPR. He's another left winger for us. Now, I spoke before how we had a few decent wingers, including Bywater, Eric Odiambo, and Matthew Fletcher. I think Hamalainen is probably a better player. He's got a bit of pace about him, and his physical stats are up there. And again, similarly like O'Grady, he's not technically gifted across the board, but he does have decent crossing stats, which is what we need from him on the left wing playing in our system. And our final loanee is Ollie Lee. He's come from Luton. He's come in on a 6-month loan deal, and he's a decent central midfielder. Physically, not as good as some of our other players, but he's got a bit more about him in the technical department, and I'm hoping he can contribute. So the board actually gave me a transfer budget of about 35 grand this year, and I wasn't intending to use it. I've never actually spent money on a player with a team so low in the league structure before, and in previous iterations of Football Manager when doing saves such as this, really the free transfer market is where I've been able to pick up all the players we need. However, there were a couple of players that appeared that I just couldn't ignore, and that required us opening our checkbooks. The first one is Scott Tancock, and he's come from Merthyr. Now, he was coming to the end of his contract, and I was tempted to wait and we could sign him without paying a transfer fee. However, similar to Luke Simpson, there are a lot of big teams sniffing around Tancock, so I got in there early and I signed him, which required us paying £5,000 as a compensation fee to Merthyr. But Tancock looks quality. He's only 22 years old, he's got a decent amount of potential to come as well. He's a good solid physical defender. Some of his other technical stats haven't developed just yet. I'm very pleased we brought him in. He's probably one of the better players we've got, and actually the coach report suggests that he's already a good enough player for League 2, so he is one for the future as well. The second player we've spent money on, which is an outrageous fee for a team such as ourselves, is Rowan Liebert. I couldn't get him in on loan. Reading were happy for me to take him on loan, but Rowan just wouldn't join us in a loan deal. Reading were happy to accept a transfer offer of just over £15,000, which reluctantly I've spent, but he's a quality player. Good physicality about him, good finishing. His composure isn't there just yet, but I'm hoping we can develop him as an advanced forward in the coming seasons. He's only 23 years old, and similar to Tancock, the report suggests he's already a good enough player for League 2. Hopefully we can get a good few seasons out of him. As far as the free transfers go, we've brought in a few players. Firstly, Andy Thano. He's a central midfielder. He's got a fair amount of potential, and as you can see there, he does have a fair bit of development to do across the board really. But he's got some absolutely fantastic stats in the right areas already. His technique and passing and his set piece play are already phenomenal. So hopefully, once we can develop his physicality and some of his other technical areas a little bit more, he may turn into a really key player for us. We've also brought in John Paul Pittman, and he came from a free transfer from Grimsby, where he scored 12 goals in 39 appearances last season in the National League. I'm hoping for a better contribution from him this year. The report suggests he should be a leading player for this league, and his stats are pretty decent. He's got the pace and the finishing and the composure that I think we need for an advanced forward. So I'm hoping for good things from Pittman. I've also brought in Svetlana Filipov, and really that expanded scouting network has allowed me to identify this player. The coaches and the scouts think he's a fantastic player already. I think he needs a bit more development in his technical areas though. We're not paying him too much, and I'm hoping we can have a good contribution from him. I've brought Jamal Fifield in from Wrexham. He's going to be our new left back to replace Connor Franklin. He's a much better player than Franklin is, but he still does have a few gaps in his attributes. But his physicality and his work rate are there already. He's not an exceptional left back, but I'm hoping he can be a good solid player for us this year. Another good player that we brought in who does have a good amount of potential in him is Charlie Cooper, and he's come from the Birmingham Under-21 setup. And similar to some of the other players, decent physical stats, but will require a little bit of development technically. However, his passing and his work rate are there already, and I think he's going to be a decent player for us. Unfortunately, he got injured in one of the pre-season friendlies, but I think he'll be a starter upon his return. And finally, we've brought in Anthony Barry, who's another defensive midfielder but can also play in the centre of the park. He's probably got some of the better technical attributes of any of our midfielders, and the reports say he's going to be a leading player for this sort of level. He looks like he's going to be a solid midfielder for us, and I'm hoping for a good contribution from him this season. So as you've seen, I've brought in a lot of players to really replenish the squad, and really some of our leading players from last year, such as Eric Odiambo and Adam Walker, are going to be no more than backup players for us this time out. You may have also noticed that I brought in a lot of midfielders, and we're probably carrying 2 or 3 too many midfielders, but as I've mentioned, people like Walker and Callum Gittings, really, they're going to have very limited game time this year. And some of the midfielders I've brought in, either as a loan or a free transfer, I'm not paying them too much money. Yes, we'll have to rotate to keep everybody happy, but especially some of the youngsters, it will give me time to assess what they can bring and where their potential will take them. Having said that, we've still got a couple of areas of weakness in our team. Firstly, we've only got Luke Simpson now. We don't have a backup goalkeeper, and realistically, as I've mentioned, I've really struggled to find a goalkeeper to come in at this sort of level. So we've only got Luke Simpson in the squad at the moment, and I'm desperately looking for either a youngster or someone to come in alone who can really play backup. The other areas of concern are still at fullback. We've got Ben Glasgow at right back, who played absolutely phenomenal for us last year, and I'm hoping he can continue that run of form throughout this campaign. And whilst he has got a fair bit of potential left in him, Jamal Fifield playing at left back doesn't really have that potential. He's a lot better than Connor Franklin, so we've drafted him in to play that position. But realistically, we don't have anybody else who can play in either of those positions at the moment. So we're really sport for choice for players in the centre of the park, just like we were with strikers last year, as you might recall. So this year we have a lot of players who can play in those positions. Barry, Ollie Lee, Charlie Cooper, Jack Haddon, Filipov, Andy Thano, Jack Byrne. as well as Adam Walker and Keenan Quansah, but Quansah realistically is going to be playing in defence for us this season, and Walker is nothing more than a backup, I don't believe. So we've got a lot of cover, a couple of the players on loan, so it doesn't matter if they don't get too much game time, as well as a few youngsters, including Thano and Charlie Cooper, who I'm hoping can develop a lot throughout the season. And then on the wings, we've got Kieran Bywater who can play either the right or left, Hammerlane and Matthew Fletcher who can play on the left side, and they'll be supported throughout the season by Eric Odiambo and to a lesser extent Jake Sheridan in support. And then up top, Rowan Liebert and John Paul Pittman both look like quality strikers, as well as Matthew Fletcher, who's got a lot of development left in him. We are massive outsiders for the league, and interestingly, the board expectation was nothing less than a mid-table position, and also they wanted a couple of decent cup runs as well. So opening day of the season today, we're at home to Crawley, and Crawley got relegated from League 2. They've only just dropped out of league football, so this is going to be an incredibly tough game for us today. We've had a decent pre-season, we haven't played too many testing games though, and a lot of our better players have only recently joined the club, so I haven't really assessed all of our new players as much as I would have liked at this stage. Crawley are going to be a really tough opposition for us today, and because of that, this is the starting 11 we're going for. We've got Luke Simpson in goal, in front of him, Fifield at left back, Keenan Quansah and Scott Tankott playing central defence, Ben Glasgow at right back, Jack Adden, he's going to be continuing for us in defensive midfield. In front of him is going to be sitting new club captain Jack Byrne and Ollie Lee. On the left wing, Nico Hammerlainen. Right wing, Kieran Bywater, he's playing the inside forward role. And up top, we've got John Paul Pittman. Our new striker, Rowan Liebert, his match fitness isn't there just yet, so he's going to be starting off the bench. We've also got Eric Odiambo, Filipov and Barry who come in as central midfield, as well as our loanee Conor O'Grady who can play at centre back. Now, Lee doesn't have as much mobility as some of our other midfielders, so I'm actually going to put him on as a deep-lying playmaker, possibly on support to start the game. Jack Byrne, I think really his lack of discipline came from that ball-winning midfielder role, so he's going to be playing as our central midfielder today and on support. This is going to be a tough fixture. They've got the Moors down as favourites for this game, possibly because we're at home. I'm not too certain how many Crawley players have left since last year, but they're a decent team and they will have a lot about them. They're setting up as 4-4-2. We need to be really careful about their two strikers, I think, today, and that is why I'm utilising Haddon in that defensive midfield position. I'm going to stick tight to their top two as well as their wingers. As far as the team talk goes, give our players a little bit of faith. And just on the player instructions, let's just make sure that we're picking up their central midfielders. And I'm going to stick Bywater on the attack as well. I don't want to drop too deep today either. We're playing the same set of instructions as before. We can up our directness if we want. So it's the Moors to kick off then. We've kicked off our campaign in the Vanarama National League. I'm hoping for a good season for us. Like I said, I don't really know what to expect from the team this year. I don't really know where we are compared to the other teams. Hammerlainen, he finds Lee on the edge. Jack Byrne now, a lot of players around him. Across to Keenan Bywater. No real option, but he's turned his man and he's got a good ball into Pittman. Goal on his debut. 1 minute in and the Moors were 1-0 up against Crawley. Fantastic start from Solihull Moors. Bywater, who did well to find the cross there, and it was Pittman pulling off his defender, and he just taps it home. Great beginning to the campaign. We're dominating possession the early moments of this game as well. No real contribution from Crawley just yet. Our pass completion rate is 83% so far. Into Haddon now. Lee, he drills the ball forward to Pittman, who finds Fifield on the left with a bit of space. A good ball across and it's Bywater at the back post. 2-0 to the Moors. A fantastic start to the campaign so far. And Fifield may have taken a bit of a deflection off the defender to make that ball a bit more looped to the back post, but Bywater got forward. We're 2-0 up. It's thrown to Crawley now. Can they salvage anything from this game? Deacon, his ball forward blocked and it's Bywater. He plays an early ball through to Pittman, who's through on goal. John Paul Pittman, 3-0. It's 2 goals on his debut. I can't remember how many he scored last year. I don't think he got into double figures though. He looks like he'll be able to do that quite convincingly for us this year. I'm happy we've retained Simpson. That's given us a lot of confidence in the back. Hamalainen finds Pittman. He's working forward and the defenders are dropping off from him. Hamalainen squares it. Jack Byrne into Lee. Haddon again. Lee crossed to Byrne, who drills it forward to Bywater through and goal. What a save! That should have been 4. It's corner to the Moors now. Bywater drills it in. And the defender rises highest to clear. Hamalainen now only just keeps that in. Oh, decent ball in, but no one really there anymore. Jack Haddon. And we've lost the ball to Crawley and they're breaking forward now. Tomlin through the centre of the park. He drills it across. Hamalainen gets the block in, but it's recovered from Crawley. And that's the end of the highlight, thankfully. Half time, we've controlled the game fantastically. Tell them we're happy. As far as the tactics go, I don't want to change a thing at all. We can start thinking about some substitutions at some point. I do want to introduce Rowan Liebert, but I don't want to put 2 up top. I'm going to make it very difficult for Crawley to get back into this fixture. And I'm hoping that Pittman can complete his hat-trick before we bring Liebert on. Start the second half here. Right, it's Crawley to begin. So we've restricted them to only 3 shots and only the 1 on target. We've got about 60% of the possession. Our pass completion rate looks pretty superb as well. Right, Pittman's picked up a knock. I think that's it. I think we're going to make our substitutions now then. That's a shame, but we've got Liebert. He's coming on. Ollie Lee looks like he's tiring a little bit. Everyone's had a decent performance. Only Hamalainen who really hasn't demonstrated what he's capable of so far. And possibly we'll bring on Odiambo for him towards the latter parts of the game. I'm going to bring on Anthony Barry at this stage though. He's going to be coming on for Lee. I'm going to put him on central midfield and defend then. It's only half an hour to go. Liebert, our other debutant up top, he's coming. Lippman with the crossing, Byrne clears it. Only to the edge of the area. We're quite slow at getting out there. How is that a penalty? Did Ben Glasgow pull him back? This might be the clean sheet. Lost here. Crawley with the penalty. Lippman versus Simpson. Simpson saves it. He gave him the grovel out legs and got down low. Right, I'm going to make our last change now. And yeah, I'm going to bring on Odiambo. Like I said, bring on Odiambo for Nikoma Hamalainen. And we're going to swap out Odiambo onto the right. We'll put him as winger support. And Bywater, we'll put him on as winger attack. Approaching the last 15 minutes then of the game. Crawley have managed to come back into it a little bit, but overall, and there's the final whistle, overall we dominated from start to finish, and that's a fantastic result for us. So 2 goals from John Paul Pittman on his debut, Kieran Bywater with the third, and it was a brilliant crossing from Fifield for that goal. Kieran Bywater man of the match, 9 for him as well as John Paul Pittman, and a decent contribution from some of our other players as well. So 3-0 to the Moors, so we're up into second place. Pittman looks like he's out for 5 weeks though. That's a real shame. I'm hoping Rowan Liebert can pick up where Pittman's left off and bang us a few goals in. So a good quality performance from the Moors there to begin their Vanarama National campaign. I'm hoping we can play like that throughout the season, but realistically, I think this division is going to be a lot more competitive than last year, and it's going to be incredibly difficult. And there are a lot of other teams that have been back to do far better than us this year. But we'll return in the next episode at home against Aldershot, and that'll be at the start of September. So thanks for watching again, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the viewing in this game as much as I have, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.